Hi, and welcome to the Quiet Sisters podcast. I'm Hailey.
And I'm Lindsey.
We're sisters and we're into all things spooky.
Yeah.
So,
Spooky,
today
spooky.
we're going to talk about something that's extra spooky. I would say
Yeah, we're
it's
going to start out with our first movie review.
it is The Witch or the Vitch, depending on who you ask. Apparently they've gotten a lot of this. Robert Eggers, the director, got some of this dialogue and like plot and stuff from old like witch trials. So apparently in those, that's occasionally how they spelled witch, because I guess the W wasn't invented yet.
Oh, interesting.
I'm assuming, I don't know, but I know that in plenty of languages like French and German, W is double, which is double V, so
Yeah.
it makes sense.
The more you know.
So The Witch came out. Well, I don't have that written down. I think it was 2015.
It wasn't too long ago.
I wouldn't quote me on that. It's a hour 32, so it's a good short one. It's directed by Robert Eggers, and it was his feature directorial debut, is what it says. So I'm assuming maybe he did shorts. Yeah, or he had just written things. His next movie is The Lighthouse. So short plot is The Witch follows a Puritan family who encounters forces of evil in the woods beyond their New England farm.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So there's a central family. It's six people. Yeah, six people in this family. It's Thomasin is the teenager, right? Who's played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who I think this is the first thing I saw her in, but I feel like maybe the first thing I actually saw her face in was Split. But she has like brown hair in that, so she kind of looks almost completely different with blonde and dark hair. And then she was in the new Emma, which I just watched, which was great. And then Ralph Ineson, I believe that's how you say his name, is William, the father. He's in a bunch of stuff. His voice is like deep, gravelly. You're like, what? It's like, excuse me, are you just gargling rocks? It's like he is speaking up. His voice is just at such a low register that you can't understand what he's saying. And then we have Kate Dickie as Catherine, the mother, who is this lady's been in other stuff, but most people would know her as Liza Aaron from Game of Thrones, and she is equally as crazy.
Crazy mother lady.
This lady's pretty good at being crazy. And then there's Caleb, which is the oldest boy, Mercy and Lucas, who are fraternal twins, and they're played by, let's see, Harvey Scrimshaw is Caleb, Ellie Granger is Mercy, and Lucas Dawson is Lucas. Convenient, don't have to learn a new name. They didn't have links where I looked up their names, so I'm not sure if they've been in on things. They look pretty young, so maybe.
Yeah.
Another fun fact about the production is that the lady who plays the old version of the witch, her name is Bathsheba.
Oh, no way.
Classic witch name, but that's her actual name. I think her last name is Sherry, I think.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, standout performance by Charlie as Black Phillip goat form. Apparently, he was a butthole. Oh, and then the lovely, crazy music is by Mark Corvin. I read also that Robert Eggers Mark Corvin knew that Robert Eggers was kind of specific about how he wants the music. So he kind of made it in a like open forum, knowing that he was going to want to change things. So I was like, wow, he's like more dissonant violins and singing, please. The casting call for that was like, who wants to be the Screaming Woods? Yeah, and then the budget was $4 million, which is I would assume that it would have been more since they made everything accurate, period accurate, not just look period accurate, but they apparently also built stuff period accurate, which is a lot.
I mean, and you can tell in the film, everything looks very, you
Old.
know,
Yeah.
really good. Yeah, old, and like the lighting is so like dark because they use just like,
Right.
natural lighting, the candles and the lanterns, and at night it's, just dark, and that's the only lights that
Yeah.
they have. I'm assuming that they did use a little bit of lighting for moonlight, because maybe they didn't, but I don't think that they could have gotten some of that moonlight as bright as it had gotten in some of the shots, um, just based on
Yeah.
filming. But it was very natural to where you could understand it as, just supposed to
Right.
be
Right.
moonlight.
Yeah. And it wasn't ever like, oh, well, this is a daytime shot. They turned it to night. They didn't do that. Costume designer pushed for a bigger budget. I'm assuming that so that she could get things more historically accurate because the more historically accurate you get, the more expensive
Right.
it becomes. Opinions. It's a
That's
good movie.
behind the scenes.
Um, a slow burn. I don't. Some people slow burn. I'm like it has like I feel like it's an intermittent burn. They're kind of giving you like
Hmm.
something, and then it's like look at their life.
I mean, crap, the movie starts out with the whole baby stuff, which we'll get into, so I don't think it's a slow burn at all.
well,
It's like, wha
well, no.
bam,
First, it
this is
starts
where
out
we
with
are.
Ralph Innocent just growling the at this
Right.
Puritan, yeah, Puritans settlement at Plymouth Colony. I don't know if they're
I
exactly
believe
at
it's
Plymouth, but
Plymouth.
it's at least Puritan. It's a 1630s New England. That is the exact setting, and the family, William and his family, are being banished from the Puritan. Yeah,
Banished.
that's literally how they say things. You are banished. I'm like, okay, cool, but they're too religious for the Puritans. They don't exactly elaborate on why exactly, but it sounds like it's some sort of their religion was too intense, which I'm like, I can't even imagine what too much for Puritans is, but okay. So then
Yeah.
they get they ride out in a cart. First they ride off and you're like, okay, there they go. It's like normal music. And then they get like closer to the woods and it's just like ladies and like strings, just like dissonant, loud, so loud. And it just gets louder as they stop and like camp. I'm like, if I was going into these woods, I would probably tell the woods to be quiet. It eventually stops when they find the place where they're making their farm, which is next to a forest, which I mean, they're inside the forest, so they just found a clearing. That's this one works. So I'm assuming also because it looks like it's reasonable walking distance to water. So
Mm.
it's like field water. That's a good place.
And we're introduced to the newborn.
Right.
Um,
Because this is something I didn't notice in the beginning. When they're at the trial, you can see that Catherine is pregnant. So like
yeah,
obviously she had the baby when after they got there.
right. And so they've been, obviously we can see like they've given us like a little bit of a time jump because she's had this baby. And I mean it's newborn, but it
Slightly bigger
looks
than that.
like, yeah, slightly like a couple months old at least. Um, and so they show that, the farm's been established and everything, and then we start the plot.
The plot.
It starts out with Thomason just playing peekaboo, which was an interesting shot, I thought, like for to like start it off because it's just like close up on her face while she's playing peekaboo with the baby, and it goes back and forth. between her face and the baby a couple of times before it goes back and baby's gone. Like,
She's like, uh.
you're like, what? And so, like, obviously, this witch is like freaking the Flash or
Right.
something, like super fast, can snatch baby and run, like all
Because it
that
was like
business.
peekaboo and then it's gone. And she looks up and she sees the like tree line move.
But
Yeah,
there's nobody there.
you're thinking this witch is very fast.
And I mean, it immediately goes to what the witch has done, right? She's walking through the woods with her
Right.
red cape on, a la Little
Pretty
Red
much.
Riding Hood. And she goes in, and then we have, dark, creepy
Yeah.
hovel and witch touching
You're like,
baby, naked baby. And you're
could you
like, no, I don't
stop?
like this. I don't like where this is going. And then she pulls out knife, and then you're like, I really don't like where this is going. And then she makes like baby soup, jello,
Right.
whatever. Like she puts the baby, like obviously she cuts the baby up, I guess. They don't show
Thankfully.
that part. But the next shot yeah, thank God. The next shot you get is her using a freaking butter
Yeah.
churn, and you're like, what is she doing with that? And then you realize, oh, I mean, she's making baby
Yeah,
butter.
pretty much. Well, I mean, it's like those bowls that you get with the stick that you grind like herbs and stuff or tea together, but it's like
Yeah,
gigantic,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah.
okay,
And then she rubs that baby butter all over
yeah.
herself. And then there's like a weird shot
Well,
of I don't know what she's
she
doing.
puts it on this a stick, and then she's like laying with the stick.
I don't know.
It
It
that
just
shot honestly doesn't fully convey that she's floating. It just kind of looks like her hair is billowing in the wind in front of a full moon
right,
kind of thing. So I think it's
right.
supposed to imply that she is also flying.
So then we go back to like obviously the aftermath of the baby being
Right,
taken. And mom, Catherine, is, just crying
right.
all the time. And it just kind of shows their like day, I guess, beginning. And then there's that scene that it starts out with, right, where they do hunting,
Yeah, because they're looking at their
right?
corn, and William's like, "Well, this corn is not good. We got to
Right.
go check our traps."
Yeah, we're gonna have to hunt for our food because this, food's not gonna
It's not working out. Yeah.
cut it. And they go out
Hmm.
to do that, and Caleb has his existential
Well, this is
crisis.
also when this right before they leave is also when they say that where the William tells Caleb that they're gonna stop looking for Sam, but it's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
has barely been a week since he was taken. I mean,
But he says if he's
right,
not dead, if he hasn't been killed already, then hunger will have
right,
taken him by now.
right. Which I'm like, I was
So he's like, we're gonna
oh,
stop
right,
looking
yeah,
for the
because
baby.
like nowadays you'd be like, oh, maybe they're still alive, but like back then, I just be he's dead.
Yeah,
Let's just move on.
yeah,
Oh yeah, and then Caleb just has this whole the Samuel was unbaptized, so will he go to heaven? It's like, well, according to Dante's Inferno, he goes
William's
to
just
baby
like,
limbo. So
yeah, William's just like, don't ask that question. Like, we don't need to ask that question. Uh, that's not our like decision or whatever. That's the Lord's
yeah,
decision. What happens? Blah blah blah. And then he mentions to him that he sold Catherine's father's silver cup that she had for
right,
hunting supplies to help them hunt. And he was like, we'll get it, like we won't get it back, but we'll get like our money's worth
right.
back or whatever after the season is over. And that's when they first
This
see
is
the
when they
demon
see
bunny.
the bunny, or I guess a hare. Who cares? But it's just sitting there, and they're like trying to load the gun, and this bunny is just staring at them.
Staring
I,
them
I was like, I don't
down.
know if I've looked at several rabbits. I feel like its eyes were slightly red. Like
Yeah,
the eyes look slightly
which
deranged.
which is not normal for the type of rabbit that they showed in this video. Like it's a
Right,
brown rabbit. I've no White rabbits
right.
usually do have red eyes. That
Right.
is normal. So I obviously I guess it's inferring that this bunny isn't
Yeah, because
human.
it's like I guess that's a form that Satan takes.
I
Bunny.
guess so. He's just like spying. He's like, I'll be a
They're
bunny
trying to
rabbit.
load the gun and then it backfires and the rabbit's like, okay, bye.
Yeah, so Rabbit's gone and they come back to the house and Catherine's all pissed off because she didn't know where they were. And Caleb tells like that story that they like went out to go pick
Right.
apples because they thought it would be a nice surprise for her because they haven't had apples in a while.
Yeah. Lie about picking apples from an apple tree, which I feel like later becomes a thing.
Right,
Because
yeah.
it's kind of
But he just kind of
it.
comes up with that story
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
placate Catherine to be like, look, this is what we're doing. And she's like, okay, well, don't do that again. I don't need you to leave.
And then
Um,
the twins are running around singing a song about Black Phillip.
right. The goat gets riled up, which is this big
Right.
black billy goat, and knocks the dad into like a pile of
Yeah. Yeah.
crap
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
from the animals. And so then there's this whole big thing where it's like, okay, Thomason, go clean your father's clothes. Go to the creek and clean
You're
the
like, okay.
clothes. And she's like, oh, okay, whatever. And then it's a weird moment where they're like still arguing, and she's like helping undress her dad.
I
I was
know,
like, this is
right?
very
I'm
weird.
like,
I
I
don't like
understand
this.
him trying to get it over his head,
um
but she doesn't need to pull it out of his pants.
and she doesn't need to like
Yeah, I'm like,
untie the
why?
little thing either. Like it's just uncomfortable. And so then we have this creek scene because she Thompson goes down there the um to wash the clothes, and uh Caleb comes
Right.
down for a minute. He's getting water and he's all sad, and she's trying to like play with him, and he's all like meh. And she's like, oh, come on now. And there's this whole weirdness of him getting aroused by her throughout the movie. There's like tones of that, and it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
You're like, okay,
Um,
bro, calm down a
and
little bit.
and that's when the
Just
twins show up
Mercy.
again and are like,
Yeah.
oh, just Mercy. Okay, so it's just Mercy, and she's like teasing and
Saying
being
that she's the witch of the
annoying,
wood and she's the
and
one that took Caleb
oh yeah, she's like,
or Samuel.
I'm the witch of the wood, blah blah blah. She's like, I'm the witch of the wood, and Thompson's
That
like, no, I am.
and she's into it, man. She's like, I'm the witch.
Yeah, she
I took
goes all
him
out.
and I'll take you. And she like attacks, like not really like hitting her,
Yeah,
just kind of messing with her.
yeah, and telling her like, don't, you better not tell mother and father, or I'll witch you
I
away and
know,
do what
yeah.
I did with the kid
Like
and blah blah
Caleb's like,
blah. And
stop, Thomason, and Mercy says, she'll don't do it, she'll witch thee.
so they all go back to the house after this, and obviously Mercy like runs away, like she's
Yeah.
all scared and stuff. Um, and they have this like dinner scene
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
next part
Which
of
I
it.
noticed. I was trying to. There was a. They had like a lighting thing on the table, like it was candles, but I couldn't figure out. It looked like they had a candle burning, and then another candle ready to like, if when this one goes out, that one turns on. But they were actually lit. They went to a different angle, and I'm like, oh, they just have two candles. It's like a metal piece that has two candles, and it's stuck into a piece of wood. I'm like, great
Yeah,
lighting.
yeah.
Yeah,
DIY lighting
yeah.
project.
And this is the whole
Um,
Catherine saying, Thomason, where's the cup? Because Thomason's the only one who knows where it is. It's like, no. Irrationally upset with Thomason being like, eh. She's like, how could you
over the baby.
forget where my father's silver cup is? Did a wolf take it like it took your brother?
And William is very, very
Yeah.
noticeably quiet. Like he doesn't speak up for Thomason, even though he knows
Yeah,
what
Caleb's
happened to
also
the
like,
cup. Like he's just like, yeah, they're both just like, and William's like, quiet woman, like stop it,
be
blah blah
quiet,
blah.
woman.
That night they have like a conversation in bed, which is hilarious because like they're having this conversation and William's like, shh, you'll wake them up. And Catherine like hollers upstairs because that's
Yeah.
where the kids are. And obviously they can freaking hear you people. Like
She said,
she's like, are you
are you
awake?
a
Are you
bed?
in bed? And they don't, are you a bed? And they don't answer. And that's good enough for her.
Right. I'm like, they could just be being quiet. They literally are just laying
Yeah.
there all awake,
And
like, just listening to. Mm-hmm.
listening to the conversation, listening to Catherine, berate Thomason some more and basically be like, we need to get rid of her. Like, I
Well,
don't want
she's
her.
like old
Like,
enough
we need to.
to. She
Right.
needs
She
to
doesn't want her
go
there anymore.
serve
So
a
she's old enough to
family.
go work for another
Yeah.
household.
And
Yeah.
then she says something about Caleb, but Williams says that he still needs Caleb to help. So she kind of lets that
Right.
go. And
Yeah.
is this when Thomason goes to? I believe this is when she gets all upset at the table and she goes to turn the goats down or something, or that's what her mom tells her to go do. And the bunny is in their like goat shed, just chilling
Oh,
there.
yeah. That was
And
like
you're
after the
like,
dinner thing. Yeah.
she's just like, oh, it's a bunny, and he's just staring. Like the bunny looks slightly crazed. I don't know how they made this bunny look just
Yeah.
off the wall insane, but the bunny looks coked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, how are they supposed to sleep through her like screaming about how they're going to starve?
Right. Yeah. Like, even if they were asleep, they
Yeah,
probably
she's like,
aren't
they'll
anymore.
starve. I'm like, okay, they're awake now.
Next morning, I guess it's early before anybody's woken up. Thomason finds Caleb like in the barn
Yeah.
getting the horse ready. And she's like, where are you going? He's like, just go back to bed. And she's like, you need to tell me. And he's like, no. And she's like, just tell me. And he's like, I'm gonna go out and check the traps and blah blah blah. And she's like, well, you gotta let me come with you.
You need not serve the
And
Tildens, whoever the
reluctantly,
Tildens are.
right, right. And oh, because I guess that's what he's hoping to go out and do stuff to like help so that she doesn't
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
go, I
Which I
guess.
don't think was the point, but he's
Um,
trying.
right, right. And so they go to the wood.
Go to the woods.
I was gonna laugh if there was a cow as white as milk.
There's a
I'm
cape
just
as red
saying.
as blood.
Anyway.
They have They have the
Exactly.
her Thomason, her mom, Mercy. They're all blonde.
They got blonde hair. I mean, we could have just given the
There
witch a
is no
potion in this
slipper
movie
as
and
pure
made
as
her
gold
young.
though. So
Oh, true, true.
they don't have that
Dang.
part. Um
Oh well.
so they're in the woods and Thomason is telling him about glass. She remembers when they had glass at their house in England. He's like, "Oh, I don't remember that." It was like, it was lovely. I'm like, can you imagine missing glass? Your
Right.
life is so boring that you're remembering when you used to have glass. And Demon Bunny, again, you're like, Demon
Demon Bunny.
Bunny, could you? I'm amazed that they haven't been like, this bunny is following us. What's happening?
I know,
And so
right?
their
They're
dog
being stalked
Fowler runs off after it. And so then
after
Caleb
the
goes
rabbit.
after him. And then the horse gets spooked by, I think, the dog barking and everybody running, and it knocks Thompson off and she gets knocked out. So she's out. And Caleb's wandering through the woods, obviously doesn't know where he is, because the woods are
Right.
vast. They're in the middle of nowhere.
Well, and I'm assuming
Yeah,
there's some
that
sort of
too.
magic
Yeah.
going on in this too. Like the Blair Witch, where she controls the woods so that you
Oh
get
yeah.
lost and stuff.
Or it kind of feels it
Um,
also kind of feels like she's calling him to her, because he seems
right.
like lost but
Hmm.
also in a trance. Well,
Yeah, he
then
seems
he hears
disoriented.
Fowler whining, And then he found Fowler very dead, and I'm like, that's a again, very fast,
Yeah, very much
very
dead.
fast witch. She's like,
Yes.
dead, disemboweled dog. I'm out. She's very swift. And he gets to her little hovel that looks like the we were saying it looks like the witch's thing from
Yeah, the witch
Brave.
from Brave. I was like, maybe it's just the witch from Brave. Maybe
Maybe
everything's
just
gonna be okay. He's just gonna get a wooden carving and he's gonna
everything
be
is just
fine.
his mom's gonna turn to a bear. Everything will be better. But no, she
It's gonna
she
be fine.
steps out, and you're like, oh well, she's not old anymore. I guess that's what. It's like,
Mm-mm.
was that the point of the baby blood, or is this just she can look like this to him to be more appealing? So I think it's kind of both, maybe.
Right, right.
Probably the baby jam boosted her powers or something. Um,
Yeah.
so he gets close, and she goes and plants one on him. You're like, oh, this must have been. I would have really been if the actress playing the witch had to like kind of violently kiss a little boy.
Right.
But she only does it for like a second, and you see like, oh, she's got like an old lady hand. So I feel like that's trying to
Oh
tell
yeah.
you that she's she looks like she's young, but she's not. Well, the other thing I noticed is that the only this her cloak that she's wearing is the only red thing that you see in the entire movie. Like
Other than the
everything,
blood.
yeah, everything else is like muted tones. It's like things that have to
Right.
do with the witch are like bloody kind of
Right.
thing. Like it's like red and but that's really the only color. This uh
It's very monotone.
yeah, this movie's very monotone because like it
Like
would be.
even the trees are like toned down.
Right.
Like they're not like super like vibrant green. Like they're very spooky
Yeah,
woods.
they're very tall, and then like the I think that they must have cut some of the branches because of
Mm-hmm.
like all it can't be all of these trees are the like foliage doesn't start until like the top, but
Right.
um yeah, William, they're out screaming for him, being like, "Oh, Caleb, Thomason." Even the mom's like, "Thomason." I'm like, "Now you care."
Yeah.
uh, and those yells are, I'm pretty sure, the only reason why Thomason is able to, because she wakes up and hears them yelling for
Right.
her, and she follows their voice to get out. So I
Right.
think that's the only way she would have been able to get out. Like if she wouldn't have been able to hear them, uh,
Catherine blames her for
yeah,
taking Caleb,
it's
even
like,
though it was Caleb's idea, and is
yeah.
like mad at her and like freaking out again. And William finally is like, dude, I sold your cup.
Could you bring it down several
Like,
levels?
back up off her.
You need
Like,
to take several seats.
yeah. And Catherine doesn't even like let Thomason like talk or anything at that point. She's just like,
Go
um,
tend to the goats.
go tend to go.
I think Thomason is cleaning something, and her mom
Oh
she's like,
yeah.
oh, do I need to have you turn the goats down? And she's like, oh, you don't need to do that because it's raining. And she's like, oh
Yeah.
no, it pleases you. And then she like kisses her head and is like, okay. So that's when she goes out to,
Right. They have like a weird moment of Catherine like not being mean to her
yeah, which is nice for like 2 seconds.
yeah, and sends her out to get the goats to
Yeah,
take care of the goats, and that's when
when she's like going,
Caleb
kind of going back, yeah,
yeah, Caleb
naked.
shows up naked in the rain, man, naked, and obviously ill, and she's like, "Ah, okay." And so they, bring him inside.
Yeah,
Um and they take him upstairs
right.
to where the kids were sleeping, I guess, is where they were before.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh my gosh," like Catherine's all like, "This is
Well,
not
well,
normal."
yeah. For that night, they I don't know what they put a like a
Don't they
cloth.
bleed him?
They put a cloth around his like middle. I don't know what that's for, and then they bleed him. I'm like,
Yeah,
I was one.
from the temple.
Yeah, like right there. You're like,
Like
okay,
I get, like, I was expecting the bloodletting, but
yeah.
like from his temple, okay.
Like, good lord, bro. But oh yeah, and
Then they
then
get to
the dad's
the
back to
morning.
chopping woods. chopping
Oh
wood.
yeah. Throughout the whole movie,
He did that
he
before.
he has beats of chopping wood. This is all he can do is when he needs to let out some energy is chop the wood.
I mean, there's just like endless trees, wood. That's a horror movie thing. You got to chop woods when you're upset. So he's doing it. And then I think that's when he finally like wakes. Well, this when the mom talks about how Samuel being taken has like,
Curse their family.
yeah, has like her faith has been shaken by him being taken. Like she doesn't put like she still believes in God, but like not fully. You're like, I kind of understand.
Yeah, she's
um,
wavering.
yeah, and he's like, oh, I'm awake. I'm crazy.
He starts coughing and his mouth, his jaw is locked shut.
Yeah,
And William like pulls out his knife and turns the knife like backwards or whatever to try to pry it open. And Catherine's like, "You're gonna break his jaw,"
yeah. He's
and
like,
he's like,
well,
"What? Like, well, what do you want me to do?" And so they like paw his jaw open, and he coughs out a bloody apple.
yeah. Which you're like, so is this time? Is the first thing I feel like you think is, oh, it's an apple that's like man's first
Right,
sin.
Adam and Eve
But I was like, but
sin.
he also earlier told a lie about picking apples,
Right,
and this movie is kind of hung up on their sins. So
right,
I feel like that's also a thing.
right.
It's a little apple though. It's not like this like huge apple. It's like, oh
Yeah, it
look,
was
a
like a
tiny
crab
apple.
apple.
Yeah, you're like, where did he get that tiny apple from? And he's just really just having a moment. And
And the whole
th-
time the twins start accusing Thomason of
yeah,
doing this
yeah,
and
and
that
then
she's a witch,
yeah,
and he's like convulsing and having his moment, and the twins like start full on Salem witch trials
yeah, because
ness.
they
Like,
William is like, okay, let's all say the Lord's Prayer around him, and they're like, oh, I can't pray because
yeah,
Thomason's a
she's
witch.
stopping our prayers.
I'm like,
And yeah,
okay,
and
yeah,
they all pray, and then he has like this like soliloquy of like
yeah.
talking to God and how he loves Christ and
It's very
all of this
like
stuff.
it sounds
And
like a like at the end it sounds like a love letter or like a
yeah,
poem
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
something.
It's like romantic in the end. Like,
You're like, okay, I mean, that is a thing of like, like Teresa's like ecstasy thing, but
right, the ecstasy of,
yeah, but
and,
it's like it's weird just seeing it. Um,
and then he just like slowly falls down and dies.
yeah, you're like, okay, he's dead now. After that, Catherine's crying, and the twins are like, Thomason's a witch. She's still a witch,
Yeah,
and he like drags her outside and is like, could you just tell me what the hell is happening?
right,
And she's like, no. They talk to Black Phillip. They talk to him like he's also giving back. So he's like, they're the witches. They made an unholy covenant with Black Phillip, and
right,
he's like, I don't know who to believe. So
right,
he just boards them all up in the goat shed.
right.
You're like,
And he's
okay,
like, you guys chill in here overnight, and we'll figure this out tomorrow.
yeah. You're like, could just stay in there. And like during the night, William's like out there like breaking down, being like, "Oh God, why are you doing this to me?" Like,
Spare my
it's my
family.
pride that brought us out here. I'm like, okay, so was it a religious thing, or is it because you're just too full of yourself? Uh, not a. But he's also like back to wood chopping because what else do you do? Throughout this movie, I'm like, people complain about modern day people using too many like shortened words or putting words together. The amount of odd contractions within this movie, I've like, you could have just said the whole word. It's like he's been witched, but it's with the apostrophe and a D. It's like witched. Duh. He's
Yeah,
been witched. Duh.
he's witched.
Yeah, I'm like that's. It's crazy. He just has emotional speech about sin. Meanwhile, inside, Catherine's also she's
Awoken.
doing
She's
some.
woken by
Was she
something.
woken up or was she doing something?
I think she was woken up by something.
Well,
She was like asleep.
she like looks up from either doing something or sleeping, and you see behind her, which I never noticed
The
before,
silver
her
cup
silver cup.
is sitting on the
It's like
counter. Yes,
out of
I noticed that.
focus, but it's there.
It's very much there.
And then Caleb is there holding Sam, and he's like, "Mother, we returned."
Yeah.
Like all whispery and like deep, and you're like, okay. It's like because he's like,
And she's
"Oh, do
like,
you
"Oh,
look at
my
the baby?" He's like,
babies."
"Do you see the book?" He says, "Do you see the book I'm holding?" She's like, "Oh yeah, but first I gotta breastfeed your baby, your
Yeah, let me feed the
brother."
baby. He's hungry.
And you're like, okay. And it's like, meanwhile in the barn, they hear like a thunk on the roof, and they're like, "Holy shit, what is happening?" And they're like looking around, and then you like hear inside there like this weird like weird like
Yeah, it's
slurping
disgusting.
noise, and then it's like over to the ghost, and it's like dark, but you can see that there's somebody there, and she's like drinking the goat milk.
Naked and drinking the goat
She just
milk.
kind of looks over and is like,
Disclaimer, there's a lot of naked old lady booty in this movie.
she just like laughs maniacally, and then it's
Yeah.
like back over to the mom, and
Immediate cut back to
she's
Catherine.
like sitting there with her arms out, and there's a crow just like eating her nipple.
Going ham on her boob, you guys. Like,
You're like,
just okay.
okay.
All right, cool.
Great. So none of that was happening. Good to know. Uh, so next day, William wakes up. I
Well,
don't know
first
where.
we get a shot of him waking up and Catherine is in bed
Oh
asleep
yeah,
with the blood on her shirt.
yeah.
So that's obviously
That
it's like
actually
that
happened.
actually
Right,
happened.
right.
Yeah, it wasn't just a like image that like she was dreaming or whatever. That actually happened.
Yeah. Yet he goes outside and it's like you just see his like reaction of like you're like, what is he looking at? He's like, and then like you look over and Thomason's like passed out. Their two white goats are dead. The like top of the goat
The barn
shed
is
has
like
like
exploded.
You're like,
The twins
he's
are
like,
gone.
where
We don't
are they?
we don't see the twins anymore. There is no
I'm
explanation
just gonna
other than
assume
they got
baby
yanked.
jam.
They got yoinked. They got yoinked out of the top of the roof.
It's
That's I'm calling it.
they're in the Forgotten, a movie that we should definitely go over because I love it. It's like sci-fi horror where when the aliens hear you talk about them, they
Oh
just
yeah,
like suck you up into the
they
sky.
just suck you into the sky.
You're like,
Yep.
oh shit.
Canon.
There they go.
So he's just like,
He's like,
what?
what the hell is happening? He's like, Thomason, like, why? She has like blood on her hands apparently, which I'm like,
Right, she wakes
I
up.
don't think that she did anything to them. I may have been just like left over from the goats like
Yeah.
dying. And he's just like staring at her, and then all of a sudden it's like Black Phillip like gorges him, which is
Oh yeah.
the worst. And he's like, oh ow, and he like thinks about, should I fight back? And then he's just kind of like, nope. He's like, go ahead. And he
Yeah,
just like
he's just like,
lets
nah.
Black Phillip gorge him again. He lands up against his gigantic
His
pile of
beloved
wood.
pile of wood.
And I'm like, I said, he died the way he lived, with his wood. He died in a place where he wished he would be. And then like Thomason she's like, okay, she gets up and is just looking around, and all of a sudden Catherine's like, and like attacks her, and she's like, what the hell? She like puts her hair like comes out. She's like, oh my god, like you're a witch. You're like, okay,
You've
well,
done this.
you're not
This
the
is your
authority
fault.
on
Yeah.
being crazy. And saying that Thomason seduced her father and Caleb.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Of like,
she calls her like a whore and stuff, and it's like, oh my god, okay.
No.
Yeah.
And then she's like she's on top of her, attacking her, and like starts like choking her out. And Thomason like slashes her a little bit, which stops her for a second, but she
finds a cleaver, yeah.
She continues to like choke her, and you can tell, even though she's being like literally asphyxiated, that she doesn't want to
Yeah, she
kill
doesn't
her
want to kill her
mother, but
mom.
she's like about to die. So she's like, I think she stabs her or slices her or something a couple of times. You just kind of hear it. And so
Yeah,
then Kate just like thumps like
falls
on
over.
top of
Yeah.
her. And it's just like, she's just laying there with like her dead mother and the blood's like on her face. I'm like, yuck. So she just gets up from underneath and goes in the house and takes off her like
Like the
overdress
outer
because she has
clothing.
like her like under, not like really pantaloons. It's like it looks pretty much like a nightgown. It's just the lower layer of
It's
her
just like the
dress.
shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her shift. And then she like gets a blanket and sits at their table and everything's like crazy. Like there's everything's all over the place and she just sits there and then she like the next shot is her like waking up. You're like,
Yeah.
fair.
And it's night. And it's nighttime.
She just fell asleep at the table.
Yeah, she's just like, God.
And she's like, well, my whole family is dead. I guess I'll go into the barn and see if this whole Black Phillip being Satan is correct.
Yeah.
She goes in there. She's like, Black Phillip, talk to me like you talk to the
And let me
twins.
just yeah, let me just say, I was not expecting a response. I was not. And then he like responds
She's
and
like,
I was
she's kind of like for a second being like, oh man, like I don't think he's
it
gonna
didn't
say
work.
anything, and she kind of like looks like she's maybe about to go away, and then he's like, "What's thou like the taste of butter?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Was thou like a fancy hat and a new dress? Was thou like to live deliciously?" And I was like, I would like all of those things.
And as he's like saying this, you start to see like an actual like person
Yeah, because like
walking behind
it's
her.
creepy because you see like his shoes when she's looking down and then like it's like dark because it's
Oh
lit
yeah.
naturally, so it's very dark, but you can tell that there's an actual
And you
person.
only get glimpses of like bits and pieces of like
Yeah,
what he looks like. So you get like kind of like a shot of like
even his
his
boots.
chin. He's got like yeah, his boots and his chin. You can tell that he's got like one of those like fancy like William Shakespeare like beards,
Right, and he's got a
and he's wearing a
hat.
hat.
He looks like a, what did we say, he looks like a conquistador?
Yeah, yeah, kind of like
Like a
it
metal
feels kind of like
conquistador.
that. Yeah.
He's like a goth conquistador, and then he's like, this is where he says, "Dost thou see?" He asks, "Do you see
The
the
book.
book?" Oh, he also tells her to take off her shift. You gotta be
Yeah, take
naked
her.
for this. He's
Yeah.
like, "Do you see the book in front of you?" And she says, "Yes." And it's like, "Okay, well, you gotta sign your name." And she's like, "I don't know how to write." And he's like, "Don't worry, I'll guide your hand to be able to sign." And
Right.
it's like, okay. And so then the like next shot is her walking towards the woods, and
Walking
like
into the woods.
he's a goat again, but like following
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And she's like, you hear the woods screaming, diegetic, like not diegetic, a um dissonant wood. She's walking towards them. I'm like, I would still be like, maybe not with the screaming woods. But
Yeah.
then it kind of does turn into, as she gets closer to a group of ladies, the screaming turns into kind of like diegetic music where
Chanting.
they're the ones that are like chanting and screaming and stuff. So I was like,
Right.
were they all? I was like, I know that
Have they
the
been here this whole
within
time?
the movie they couldn't hear all the like strings and screaming, but I feel like they're trying to be like, yeah, like there was underlying, there's like a lot of them. You're
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh,
there's like
here's
it
like a
looks like there's
bunch
at
of
least
witches.
10
Yeah, like around a fire, just like gyrating and like
naked and doing their thing, man.
naked. And they're just standing around the thing, and Thomason's like, hey, okay.
Okay.
And then they start just like floating in the air, and it's kind of
Yeah, they
weird
just
because
start
they're
levitating.
just like like moving their legs around it. And she's like, oh man, do I get to fly too? It's like, yes, even though you like literally just became a witch, you
Yeah.
also do get to do this. And like it's like 11, and she's like laughing And like you're like, okay, this is like pretty fucked up, but like good for her. It's like the first time you ever see her smile really
Right, yeah.
or see
As
her
she's floating,
laughing really.
she's like, ah ha ha,
Yeah, I
I'm
was like, she's
free.
defying gravity. Just kidding. And then it's like shows her like all up at like the top of the train. It's like and it's like cut to black.
And
And then
the
it
end.
and then it I took a picture of this because I wanted to like quote it. Okay, it said, this
Yeah.
film was inspired by many folk tales, fairy tales, and written accounts of historical witchcraft, including journals, diaries, and court records. Much of the dialogue comes directly from these period sources. Um, which stuff like yeah, everybody
Yeah.
was all witch. She's a witch. Everybody's a witch. It's all witch, 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 witch. You're like it's the weirdest thing coming from like
Well,
Puritans and religious people. I'm like, why would you go straight to witch, not maybe God is doing this thing?
yeah. Well, I mean, this was very Salem witch trial. Like I said before, like the way that the twins react and stuff, with all their like freaking
Yeah,
out and,
I
during
believe
the
that being
whole,
taken from a court
not, it
proceeding
wasn't,
would have been like for sure.
oh yeah, yeah. With them wailing and being all like, oh my God, I'm being witched.
She'll
Oh,
witch
like,
thee. It's like
I
witch is a
mean,
verb.
it's hysteria.
You can be
Yeah.
witched. You can describe something. It's an adjective, a noun, a verb. All of the above.
But yeah, I mean, for a 90-ish minute movie, like it's really good and then escalates quickly. This was, and like we had discussed this before, I had started watching the movie several times before and just had never finished it for whatever reason or another. Not because I wasn't
Right.
interested in it, but I think it was because I just kept trying to start it at
Right.
night and got tired.
It's very
And
easy. That's
so halfway, like towards the end of it, I stopped taking notes because I was like, what the fuck is happening?
yeah, I'd seen it before, so I knew it was happening. I didn't remember that you saw her cup. Or really that Caleb was talking like when he talks where he's all like deep and like whispery, and then when Black Phillip talks when he's like talking to Thomason, it's like you then realize, oh, I think that was him both like it was Satan. Like because
Right,
he
right.
asks because Caleb asks her asks Catherine if she sees, would you like to look at the book? And then it's like, can you see the
Right.
book?
And you could posit that like he takes the form of something that's going to like, lure them in the most. So for Catherine, it was her children
Yeah.
that she's lost. And for Thomason, it was, a fancy
Stranger. Yeah.
guy because, stranger because, she misses England. She misses the glass that she mentioned, because it was
He
like,
should have just been a giant pane
fancy
of
and
glass.
nice. Yeah, he should have been a giant pane of glass. But it's like something that she desired,
Right. So that's
something,
like through the thing
kneeling.
you're kind of like, why are you when Mercy says, oh, you're a witch, you never like deny it when she says it, but you deny it like when your father says it. I was like, I feel like not because I don't
Hmm.
think she was a witch the entire time, like 1000% no, but I feel like
No.
she wanted to be different and felt like, just
Hmm.
making them believe she was a witch was just something to do because I'm bored. And
Yeah,
you can tell that she definitely doesn't
yeah.
like that they left. I mean, Catherine also doesn't like that they left England either. Yeah, so
So that's The Witch.
that's The Witch. Feel free to not watch it. We describe the entire thing. Don't be like, you should watch it though, because
It's a great movie. It's really good.
yeah, it's like Robert Eggers definitely goes off of visuals. And
Hmm.
there's in between the like plot points, there are long spaces of nothing really happening.
Hmm.
But it's still interesting.
It's
It's not
very
like a
visually
boring, oh, there's
pleasing.
like yeah, I was like, oh, like could we just get to the next plot point? It's pretty.
Yeah.
So it's pretty. The atmosphere is good. It's like obviously more spooky
Hmm.
than like straight up scary or like gory even. Like because there's blood, people get stabbed, but you don't ever really see it.
Right.
Like you don't see like the end result other than the dog. They're like, look, here's an eviscerated dog. You can see that, but
Yeah.
everything else is pretty off screen and implied,
Right.
but
And
it's definitely still
it's not like jump scare horror, like
right.
it's more suspenseful, like creepy imagery.
There's a couple like oh like oh crap that's scary.
Yeah.
Just like the thought of it, kind of like in like Hereditary, or like oh like the shot like
Yeah,
freaks me out.
visually
Visually
unsettling.
something just you're like oh I don't like that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely in there.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's also it's 93 minutes. Like
It's short.
it's not a waste of your time.
Mm-mm.
It's not trying to take up too much time. So watch
And
that.
since this episode's
It's
going out during self-isolation station, you've got nothing better to do, so go
yeah,
watch it.
if you have Netflix, which you probably have Netflix, it's on Netflix.
Yeah, go watch it, man. All right.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you guys on the next episode.